The purpose of this video is to review high school graduation requirements in order to obtain a high school diploma. We're going to review credits, testing, as well as note that you need 75 service learning hours. So for your English credits, please note that there's one for every year that you're in high school. You also must pass English 1 in order to move on to English 2. You must pass English 2 to move on to English 3. English 2 is an MCAPS tested subject. And again, there's one for every year you're in high school. So if you fail any of these courses or any required course, you're going to have to take it over again. And this could potentially put you at risk for not graduating on time. Your math requirements are Algebra 1, which you must pass before taking Algebra 2, Geometry, Algebra 2, and a fourth math. Algebra 1 is an MCAPS tested subject, and the same goes here. If you fail it, you'll have to retake it in order to pass, and then you could be risking not graduating on time or being on track to get promoted. There are 3 science requirements, which are biology, chemistry, and physics. For most high schools, including the one I work at, Green Street Academy, if it fits into your schedule, students will likely graduate with more than 3 science credits. For social studies, you will need U.S. history, American government, and world history, and American government is an HSA tested subject. Additional requirements include a technology education credit. So, for example, Foundations of Computer Science would fulfill that. You need 1 fine art credit, like Fundamentals of Art. You also need a half credit in gym and a half credit in health. You also need elective credits, and elective credits are basically any course that is not one of the ones listed under the core subjects. For your foreign language requirements, you will need 2 credits in the same foreign language. So, for example, Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, or French 1 and French 2, and so forth. Some schools have career and technical education programs, and in order to be considered a completer, you would need 4 credits minimum in that pathway. At Green Street Academy, your CTE classes typically begin in your sophomore year. We have 3 pathways that include medical and health sciences, construction design and management, as well as urban agriculture sciences. So you could be in a course beginning in 10th grade each year, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And if applicable, you'll take an industry level certification exam at the end of your 12th grade year at the completion of your program. These certifications look great on resumes as well as for college and scholarship applications. For testing requirements, please note that this is an ever-changing requirement. The requirements also differ for each graduating cohort year. So I'm just going to go over the 4 subjects that are tested, but again, please note that these are always changing and different depending on what year you entered 9th grade. There's an Algebra 1 assessment. It used to be the PARCC. It is changing to the Algebra MCAPS. When it was the PARCC, the passing score was a level 3, which was at least a 725. For the English test, it's also changing to an ELA MCAPS. When it was the PARCC English 2, the passing score was also a level 3, a 725. For the government HSA, students will take the government HSA towards the end of the year that they take the American government course, and the passing score for this test is a 394. For science, there's a new test called the MESA. No passing criteria has been established yet, but students typically take this Science MESA test in 11th grade after having taken biology, chemistry, and physics. So typically what happens when you don't pass a required test needed to graduate? Again, noting that these are different for every graduating cohort year. But typically what happens is students who don't pass a test the first time will end up taking that test again the following year. If a passing score is not received the second time around, then students may be required to complete bridge projects in place of a passing score in order to fulfill those requirements needed for graduation. And it's important to note that the state of Maryland does require students to take those tests at least twice in order to be eligible to complete bridge projects. As an example, here is what government bridge projects would look like. So again, the passing score is a 394. Your score is going to determine how many bridge projects you will need in government. So for example, if your score fell between a 372 and a 393, you would need one government bridge project. If your score fell between a 350 and a 371, you would need two government bridge projects, and so forth. It's really important that if you don't pass this assessment the first time you take it, that you review and try your absolute hardest the second time you take it in an effort to pass the test the second time, or at least to raise your score in an effort to maybe reduce the number of bridge projects that you'll have to complete, because it'll always go by your highest score. So as a warning, any of the credits that we review that are required to obtain a high school diploma, if they aren't passed, you will have to retake them and eventually pass them in order to fulfill credit requirements. Summer school is very expensive and should not be an option for you. If your plan is to obtain a high school diploma in your lifetime, then you need to pass the classes that you're in the first time you're in them. Don't waste your own time, and more importantly, don't waste your family's money. Take a look at these costs. For standard public school students, summer school courses cost $75 each course. But for charter school students, like students who attend Green Street Academy, for example, summer school courses cost $500 each. That is ridiculous. Pass them the first time. Not passing your classes potentially puts you in danger of not being on track and not graduating on time. Don't pay these unnecessary costs, both monetarily and with your time and your future. To review promotion standards, they changed beginning in the 2017-2018 school year. And you can take a look at what the previous policies were in this column. In order to move from being on 9th grade status to 10th grade status, you need to have passed 5 credits, including English 1 or Algebra 1. To move from 10th to 11th grade status, you need to have obtained at least 10 credits total, and those credits need to include 3 credits in Algebra 1, English 2, and Geometry, and 1 credit in a Social Studies and Science. In order to move from 11th grade status to 12th grade status, you'll need at least 15 credits total, including 5 credits in English 1, 2, and 3, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, and 3 credits in Science and Social Studies, at least 1 in each. I want to take a minute to talk about the importance of your GPA, your grade point average. So your grade point average is the average of all of your final grades. So although you see a GPA on each of your quarter report cards, it is your final grade that gets calculated into your overall GPA. Each grade has a GPA value. The cumulative GPA is updated at the end of each semester in January and in June. It's kept all years of your high school experience, so it is cumulative. And what happens in 9th grade will remain your GPA from 9th grade and then continue to get factored in. So it's important that you start off strong and keep that going. Your GPA largely determines college admission and potential scholarship money. Because honors and AP courses are more rigorous, the grades are weighted more heavily. So for example, a regular class and a B average, an 80, is usually a 3.0. For an honors class, you get a bump of a 1.0, so an 80 would be considered a 4.0. For advanced placement AP classes, they're weighted with a 1.5 GPA bump. So again, for that example, an average of a B would be a 3.0 in a standard regular course. For an AP course, it would be a 4.5. And you can take a look at the chart below. Here are your grade ranges. In this column, this is what those grades are worth in a regular course. This column shows you what those grades would be worth in an honors weighted class, and this column shows you what those grades would be worth in an AP weighted class. So, for example, again, a B in a regular class would be considered a 3.0, but for an honors class, it would be weighted as a 4.0. An AP class would be a 4.5, just like the example I showed you in the previous slide. Some tips to increase your GPA. Remember, starting off strong from 9th grade is going to be really important. You want to work hard to pass all of your classes with the highest grade possible. Some teachers allow, or some courses allow for you to redo quizzes or tests or redo assignments to get a higher grade. You should definitely take advantage of those opportunities if they're available. If you don't understand something, say something. Make sure you're in regular communication with your teacher. Do all of your homework, turn in all of your class assignments, and make sure you keep good notes so that you can review and study for any tests. If you're having trouble, go to coach class regularly, and again, communicate that with your teacher. And finally, get some sleep. Seriously. Put your phones down, stop playing your video games, and make sure that each night you are getting enough rest so that you're prepared for your day in the morning. Don't ruin your chances to get where you want to be after high school. So to review some notes about sports, the district does have a standard that you must have a GPA of a 2.0 the quarter before the season of that sport starts in order to compete. If you're planning on playing a sport in college, there are certain NCAA requirements that you should pay attention to. So for example, to play Division I sports, you have to meet the following requirements. First, you need to graduate high school on time. And then the NCAA is actually looking for your cumulative GPA in certain core courses. And they require a 2.3 or above in these 16 core courses. And then also your SAT or ACT scores play a role in that as well. So for Division I sports, you can take a look here. These are the 16 core courses in which they're going to be calculating and looking at your GPA. So for example, your grade in, say, health or gym class may not, or art may not factor into your core courses. They are looking at English, math, science, social studies, and then additional courses such as foreign language. For Division II, here are the requirements. Your high school will be what you make it. Please make sure that you are setting yourself up to be where you want to be your senior year so that whatever plans you make for after high school are attainable and that you have set yourself up to have the requirements needed to do those things. If you have any questions at any time about any of the information that was covered or about your particular core courses or GPA or any requirements or your path through high school, please make sure you reach out to your high school counselor who can answer those questions for you.